I can't get all that in.
You can if you want.
How I can get that in?
You can put basement flooring.
So I need to do wall.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. There's no, yeah, you can do wild basement.
Okay, I'll do W first.
Yeah, you can do that.
Alright. L. B. And then I can put. This.
Yeah, you can put space on that as well.
And will be. B. I can put my phone number next to it.
Yeah, your phone number is already there.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for those of you who are joining us. We'll give it a few
Morning.
more minutes to see who else pops in. Good morning, Louis.
Good morning.
And then I can do.
How are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Good.
Wonderful.
L. O. O.
How about you this morning?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good.
It's Wednesday, so we're halfway through the week.
Right?
And then R.
Bessa, what do you do?
I do business development for East Valley Disaster Services.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
That's it.
So we water, fire, mold, asbestos, lead, and reconstruction.
And you're in
So kind of
Arizona, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
mhm. We're
That's
in
what I
Mesa.
thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Professor, I'm at the Hurricane Conference in New Orleans.
Oh
and
my.
all about disaster recovery and resiliency.
Yes. Yeah. That is definitely a big part of it.
Yep.
Most people don't ever have to go through anything like that. And that's one of the things we focus on with our project managers and our staff is being aware of the impact that it has on people's lives. And, you know, we're not just part of helping them put their house back together or their building per se. It's just, you know, being a part of the solution and, you know, trying to make a bad situation better in any way possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're only in Arizona and we don't deal with hurricanes out here too much. So I hadn't even heard of that conference.
Yeah. Well, it exists, but it's not just for hurricanes. FEMA's here, HUD is here.
Okay.
Floods, they talk about every possible disaster you can imagine. So it would be
Sure.
good for you guys to consider if you're interested in doing FEMA funded, HUD funded, brick funded work.
That actually is something that I have been looking into. So, yeah, thanks for the information.
Absolutely.
That's the closest.
So we have about 25 people that signed up. So we'll just give it about one more to see if anybody else pops in, if they're having any troubles, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
There you go.
Cool.
Just click create.
Great, it's done.
Morning, Michael. Good morning,
Morning.
Ashley. Morning, Denise. I see Matt joined us. Good morning. Does anybody have an exciting plan for this weekend? Doing anything? No. I know that smoke is really overcasted right now, and I just feel like it's sad outside and gloomy.
It is. It is.
Yeah, it is. We're going to celebrate fake Father's Day on Saturday instead of Sunday.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, it is Father's Day weekend. It came up quick. All right, well, it doesn't look like we have everybody yet, but we're gonna go ahead and get started for the sake of Lewis's time. Should last about 30 minutes. So for those of you who, thank you just for joining our Coffee and Chat with Business Development Guild. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Crystal Kyle Holtz, and I am your Phoenix chapter president. For those of you joining for the very first time, the Business Development Guild's mission is to be the premier source of education, coaching, and support for the business development profession. We truly do believe that when business development, operations, and management are aligned, amazing things can happen. And that leads us to today's topic. So the topic for today's discussion is, from an ops perspective, what is expected from a business development professional? So I did bring in Lugo from Hill International. He's the senior vice president. And so thank you, Louis, for joining us today. These coffee and chats are meant to be an interactive platform. So if you do have questions along the way, just drop them off in the chat, and then I'll ask Louis when the time's appropriate. But if you guys can help me welcome Louis, and I'm going to pass it off to him so he can introduce himself. He's going to talk through a little bit, and then I'll ask him some questions, okay? So Louis, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Crystal. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. My name's Louis Lugo. I'm based in Miami, Florida. Crystal asked, are you doing anything exciting? I'm going in my boat to the sandbar on Saturday, God willing, and it's going to be fun. So that's my exciting plan for the weekend. I'm currently in New Orleans, where I'm attending the hurricane conference. Vessa say she had never heard of it, but it's where all disaster recovery experts and owners, including people at the federal, state, and city level, join.
I know. I'm excited.
So this is a big conference, and we'll be talking a little bit about conference planning. I'm responsible for developing business and growing the company in the Americas, including South America, Central America, the Caribbean, Mexico, the US, and Canada. And throughout that region, we have business developers like all of you working in cities that include Phoenix, Los Angeles, San Francisco, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Hill is a company devoted to doing program project and construction management. And we don't do any hardcore design or engineering. We represent owners' interests all over the world in helping them deliver their vision and their goals and objectives for their various projects. We operate in multiple markets, including rail, transit, aviation, manufacturing, energy, et cetera. So I've been doing this for 20 years. For the first 20 years of my adult life, I was in the Army. I retired as an infantry officer, and then I started my second career, and I've been doing this for 20 years. So total 40 years having fun and working. When I entered this industry, I entered not in business development, I entered in HR. I was the director of human resources for an engineering company, and that's how I started. And when you're a member of a small company and somebody else leaves, it's typical that you have to figure out how to fill that gap. So I started filling gaps along the way, and I went from HR to marketing to business development to operations. I spent 13 years in my first company. I rose to become the president and chief operating officer and part owner. And when I left there, I joined Hill International, which is an international or global company. And I've worked both on operations and I've worked on business development. I did business development in the Northeast US for program, project, and construction management, and also for claims construction services. So from there, I went to run the Southeast Caribbean and Latin American region. And then now I'm back, the lead business developer for our company in the Americas. So I've been on both sides. It's exciting. And I'm glad to be here to talk to you about the perspectives that I have. Katie wanted me to talk about several things. So I'm going to address business model that I see in the industry and where the business development fits. And it doesn't matter if you're selling peanuts, pencils, or professional services. I believe this business model is pretty applicable across the board. So I'll talk a little bit about that. I'm also going to talk about strategic planning in line with business, between business development and the operations people. I'll talk a little bit about what my thoughts are on the right person for business development and talk a little bit about conference planning. So those are the topics I'm going to be talking about. When people ask how important is business development, it's real simple to me. If you guys don't do your job, the company dies because the work will stop. So you are the most important part of the business wheel, of the business cycle, of the business model. Everything starts and ends with you. You have to identify the opportunity. You have to mine the opportunity. You have to qualify it, determine if you're going to go after it or not. Depending on what you're doing, you might be selling supplies, you might be selling services, move forward with a sales plan, make the proposal, win the job or win the sale, and turn it over to ops to get it done, either to deliver the parts, to deliver the service, to deliver the project. And that's what starts the wheel at the company at the point of sale, where all the other groups start getting involved from the business, from the HR group to the operations group to the finance group to the IT group. I mean, everything starts with what each and every one of you do. So it's a very, very important job, and it cannot be done successfully unless there's a plan. And that plan can't be done in isolation. It has to be a plan that is done on both sides. So companies have business plans. Hopefully companies have long-term and short-term plans. Hopefully companies have a strategic plan, but that cannot and should not be done in isolation of the rest of the company. And I truly mean the rest of the company, including all the other departments such as IT, HR, and everyone else. But it absolutely cannot be done or should not be done without the involvement and participation of the business development team. Your sales plan, your business development strategy going forward should support the vision, the mission, and the goals of the company. And everything should be founded on those core values that really epitomize the type of company that you are. And these values, this mission, this vision should come from the top down, but it should also involve everyone at the bottom of the company so that you meet somewhere in the middle, gathering and collecting information from everyone. So it's not a vision and the mission and the objectives of a few, but the vision, the mission, and the objectives of the whole. And when you have a plan that's created in a team, it's not their plan, it's our plan. People buy into it because they participated, and it's easier to execute because everyone's involved, everyone had a say. So a lot of times I've seen business development plans, and when I compare them to the operations plan, I start seeing gaps, I start seeing disconnects, and it's very obvious when they've not done it together. So my recommendation is always to do the planning with your operations partners and other stakeholders to make sure that there are no gaps and to make sure that you're focusing on what you need to focus on, because it has to ultimately support the vision of the company, the mission, and the objectives. And when you do that and you have a good plan, then you have a shot of getting there. The nature of what we all do is not that simple. Everyone thinks, oh, that person in business development is so lucky. They have an expense account. They get to take people out to dinner. They're hardly ever in the office. They get to travel. But a good business developer is working long hours, putting in a lot of sweat, because before you meet with a client, before you make a phone call, before you get on a plane to go on a conference or meet key potential clients, you have to do a lot of research, you have to do a lot of planning, and you have to be ready to take advantage of the opportunity so that you can come back with what you wanted to do. Oftentimes people go into a call, a meeting, or go to a conference, and they don't have a plan. And when you don't have a plan, you're going to have your meeting. Maybe you had your steak and you had a few drinks and you came back, but you're probably not going to come back with what you should have. So I think planning at the lowest level and at the meeting level, at the conference level, is very, very important. People often ask me, Louis, what are the characteristics of a good business developer? And I'm very opinionated on this. I believe a good business developer has to be a person that has high energy, someone that is self-motivated, someone that doesn't need a lot of hand-holding. It has to be a self-starter. It's you guys are one-man wrecking crews in your own right, because that's what it takes. Oftentimes you're one person band, and if you're not going to be very successful. So you have to have a lot of skills, and some of those skill sets include having the ability to identify opportunities, having the ability to evaluate those opportunities you find and define if that's a go or a no-go type of a situation. You have to be able to put together a sales plan. You have to be able to communicate verbally. You have to do it in written form. You have to be able to stand in front of a large group and be engaging, be able to deliver a message, be convincing. Good business developers are not unsure of themselves, so you have to be very sure of yourself. And in order to sell whatever it is you're selling, you better know what the hell it is you're selling and be an expert at that. Because otherwise, you're not going to come across to the potential client or the potential buyer as in the right light and be convincing for them to use your product. So you have to become an expert at some point, because otherwise you're not going to be very good at selling vacuum cleaners if that's what you're selling, right? So it's not easy finding good business development people. So some of you are probably in positions where you hire others, and looking for business developers is not that simple. And often we decide, well, I can't find the person I'm looking for at this level, but I have to hire someone. So I'm going to hire someone with the potential, and you take on the task of developing and growing that person. And that's not a bad thing to do either. But having good job descriptions, good career development plans, having a plan to coach, teach, and mentor those people is key. And being able to do that and having the time. Oftentimes we hire people with high expectations and set them up for failure because we didn't do a good job at putting that person in a situation, and then we end up terminating them and wonder, gee, why did they fail? And the best answer is right in front of the mirror. It's your fault. It's my fault because we didn't do such a good job at first. So I think it's key to have a good business plan. I think it's important to understand where we all fit in the big scheme of things with companies. Make sure that you fight for your role inside of that company. Make sure you have a seat at the table with the big boys and the big girls, and you're part of that planning process, that decision-making process. And the best way to do that, if you're in a situation where you're not looked upon that way, is to become the man, become the woman with all the information, all the data, all the metrics to help people make sound, intelligent, timely decisions. And the best way to do that is to have the information ready and to have it not in a spreadsheet that's hard to understand and in a spreadsheet that requires a lot of analysis, but to have it in a graphic way. Nowadays, we refer to these as dashboards. So when you have timely, intelligent, actionable information, your boss is going to listen. The president's going to want to hear what you got to say, because these metrics and this data helps drive sound decision-making for them. And that's one way where you can elevate your game and make sure you have a seat at the table. The last thing I want to talk about are meeting conferences. I talked about briefly about having a call plan, having a meeting plan. I mean, it takes 5 minutes literally before a phone call to sit down, gather your thoughts, and put together what are the objectives of this call that I'm going to have with this individual over the next 5 minutes. And when you lay it out in a bullet form, it's easy to stay on script and be able to start the meeting you want to, the way you want to start. If you're going to do an ask during the meeting, to have that laid out. If you're going to talk about the values of your product or the values of your service, to have all that laid out and organize the message so that the meeting flows the way you want it, so that you're not scrambling in the middle of the meeting trying to think, oh, gee, why am I talking to Mr. X? Because it's in front of you and we're all humans. And sometimes we forget things. There's nothing wrong with that. And most of you are very young, but as you get older like me, having notes is very important. So you prepare that way for a call, you prepare the same way for an in-person meeting. When you go to a conference, you need to know who's attending the conference. Are any of my clients going to that conference? Get a copy of the conference attendee list. If you have to pay for it, do a cost benefit analysis. Is it worth paying $500 for the list? I mean, one sale, $500 gets wiped off. So the ROI on that typically is let's buy the list, right? Because now you get the person's name, the company, the email, and the cell number, and that's gold, right? So if you can get that early, you can start sending emails and start targeting people, start setting up meetings. So when you show up to the conference, it's all laid out for you, right? But oftentimes people don't want to spend the $500. They're hoping and praying they run into people in the hallway. That's not a good plan. I mean, you might stumble into people, but that's not what you want. You want to have breakfast meetings laid up. You want to have lunch meetings set up and dinner meetings set up. And then in between, you want to have opportunity to catch people and talk to them in the hallways. I mean, if you're selling a service, if you're selling to the government, you know, when people are away from their center of power, they're more vulnerable. So if I'm a city manager of the city of Phoenix and now I'm in Las Vegas at a conference, I am a lot more accessible and easier to talk to in the conference than I am in my big office where I've got a secretary and who knows what else. So you got to go through hoops to see this person, but yet he or she is right in front of you in the hallway or right across from you at dinner, breakfast, or lunch. So I think planning out your conference is very important. And I'm not even going to get into planning a booth and everything that goes into planning a booth. Who should go to the conference? Why should they go? Should we all wear a shirt that says the name of our company? Should we all wear a jacket and a tie because that's more appropriate for this group and this gathering? Should we sponsor the conference? Should we have a dinner meeting where we invite certain people because we're targeting that client? Should we rent a place and have a happy hour and invite everyone at the conference because that makes sense? I mean, there's lots of decision makings, a lot of planning, a lot of budgeting, and that's a whole separate discussion. But the point is, when you don't have a plan for a call, a regular meeting, or a conference, you're not going to come out with everything you should. And you know, that's, in my opinion, it's business development 101, but it's important that we do it. And sometimes we're all in a big rush or we forget to do it. It happens to me. I'm guilty of it, but I have to keep reminding myself that I have more success when I plan for the year. I plan for the next 2 or 3 years. I plan for a meeting. I plan for a call. So anyway, those are the things I wanted to talk about, and I want to leave time for Crystal and anyone else who wanted to engage on any question or dialogue on any topic I might have touched upon.
Thank you, Louis. And what great reminders, especially with all these conferences that are coming up here. We're starting to get very busy as the fall quickly approaches us. But I love the reminders of making sure that we're being strategic when we're attending these conferences and making sure that we have a plan to get something out of it. So I know when you and I were talking to prepare for today's conversation, you mentioned whenever a business developer goes out to meet with a client or attends a conference, you like to follow up and ask them 2 to 3 questions to determine what the BD professional actually got out of that meeting. Would you mind sharing kind of the questions that you typically will follow up and ask?
Sure. I like to ask always, what gap did you identify when you were talking to the client? And that's important, because if I'm selling professional services, and in my case is project, program, and construction management, I would want to know if the city of Phoenix has an issue with a project management information system because the one that they have is not working well. So that's a gap. Oftentimes I meet with clients that don't even know they have gaps. And if I've done my planning and my job correctly, I know 3 or 4 gaps that they have, and oftentimes that they themselves don't know they have. So when you're able to engage a client and identify gaps that they themselves hadn't figured out, that's a powerful moment. I also like to ask, what did the client tell you that they needed? And did the client share with you what's most important to them when engaging a company like Hill, in our case? I also ask my business developers when they meet with people, did you find out which companies they like? Did you find out, is there a certain person out there that they wish they could hire, or they wish the next contractor would bring on board? If you're selling a product, what's the current product that you have not work, why don't you like it? Why are you looking to replace, I don't know, a Chevy vehicle? I mean, all your fleet of vehicles are all Chevys. What's wrong with Chevy? And them sharing that information with you, if you're selling Ford, then you're going to know how to position your product. So there's a million things that are so important in a meeting. And those are just examples of some of the things I asked to see if they came up with some good information, right? And I use it as a teaching moment, because when I realize that they didn't do such a good job in their call or in their face-to-face meeting, then I become a coach, a trainer, and a mentor, because it's what we all have to do. And when we don't do that, then we become part of the problem. Walking away knowing that they really screwed up the call or the meeting and not doing anything about it is bad, because now you're part of the problem. So you have to shift into coaching, teaching, and mentoring mode immediately and help them. And that's how they grow and they get better over time.
Thank you, Louis. And just a quick reminder, I mean, if you guys have any questions for him, please drop it in the chat, and I can definitely take a moment to ask Louis. But I do have another question for you, Louis. From an ops perspective, can you touch on the sometimes negative perception that BD professionals can get about spending too much or not enough time in the office? Is there a good balance for this?
No, I tell everyone that works for me, I don't care what time you come in. I don't care what time you go home. I don't care if you work Saturday, Sunday. I don't care if I don't see you for 3 days. I only care about one thing: do your job. And I know, because everyone who works for me has a plan. They have a sales goal, and I have metrics that I track. And we have a CRM process and system, and we have a workflow, and I don't need to see you to know what you're doing. I know everything about everyone working for me, and I know what we're supposed to achieve. We have weekly meetings, we have one-on-ones. I mean, I have a organization within my team, so everyone doesn't report to me, but the people that report to me have people that report to them. And if we're all doing our job, that's all I care about. Now, if you're in an office and you're the only business developer and everybody else is in operations, there are perceptions that are created. But you know what? Those perceptions go away when sales are coming in, when projects are being won. So if you're a successful business developer, people don't care where you are. They only care that you're bringing in the work, because if you don't bring in the work, they're all out of work. I think business developers should develop partnerships with operations. Even if you have nothing to do with the people in the office, you should devote some time to getting to know them, to participating in some of their team building events. Make sure that you integrate yourself with the place where you are. Make sure that they know what you're up to, what you're doing. Bring them into your world and share that with them, because sometimes people make assumptions, and perceptions are realities. And the more you share about what you're doing, the more they're going to know. And I always like to deputize everybody that's around me. I'm not proud. I'll accept all the help I can get from everyone. And I found that when I train operations people, they bring leads. They tell me things they learned about. They heard something in the paper. They read an article. They saw something in social media. And all these little bits and pieces become parts of a larger pie or puzzle, which oftentimes leads to an opportunity in a project. So when they're part of the process, it works really, really good. So that's my perception on the question.
No, that's great. And I know you mentioned connecting with, your ops team, and that's something that Business Development Guild is a huge advocate for. Is there a minimum that you would recommend on how often the business development professional in the office should actually either touch base or meet with the ops team?
It has to be ongoing.
Okay.
And it has to be, in my opinion, it has to be an integrated thing. It can't be us and them. It has to be us, right? So I advocate for having a responsibility matrix. And what that is you list out all the key responsibilities of the business, and determining who's got the decision-making power on that particular thing, who's got supporting role, and who's just, it needs to be in the know. So you're either in charge of the decision, you're supporting the decision, or you just need to be aware of the decision. So give me an example of what you mean, Louis. So, if you're selling professional services, who decides if we should go after an RFP that was just published by the city of Phoenix? Is it marketing? Is it ops? Every organization is different, but you guys have to sit down and figure this out. Put it in a responsibility matrix, publish it, everyone knows. You may tweak it, but once you get it right, it clarifies what the boundaries are. And then you should have scheduled, routine, ongoing meetings with the ops people. You should know everything in their world, and they should know everything in your world. And when we behave and operate that way, then it's one integrated team. And if you have a plan, if you've hired the right people, and if you operate this way, there's no way you can fail. You're going to be successful at whatever it is you're doing.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So we are actually coming up at 9:30 right now, Louis, and I just want to keep your time in mind. But does anybody have any last minute questions? I mean, you can come off mute at this point. It looks like we have a question in the chat right now. If you are stuck to a desk as your other job functions state you must be available to your staff, what do you feel is the best way or channel to complete BD?
Say that again.
Yeah, if you are stuck at your desk as your other job functions state you must be available to your staff, what do you feel is the best way or channel to complete BD?
Yeah. Managing time is not simple. We're all working long hours, and companies nowadays like to assign multiple responsibilities to one individual. So you may be responsible for marketing, but maybe along with marketing, you're also the business developer. Maybe you're also in charge of proposals. And now those are three separate hats, and you're like, well, which one comes first? So it's not easy. You have to manage your time. And sometimes you have to have a honest discussion with your boss, and you have to figure out, I mean, sometimes we overtask people and set them up for failure, and we don't realize it, because guess what? The better you are, the more work your boss is going to give you, right? Because you're dependable, you're reliable, and you deliver. So that's human nature. So if you keep accepting, that's a never-ending proposition. So you can't allow yourself to be in a position where you're going to fail. So that's number one. Number two, you have to prioritize what you do, and you have to figure out what comes first. And you have to focus on that. If you're in a leadership position, yeah, the only way to lead is to do it. You can't do it through email. You can't do it through Skype or Zoom or Microsoft Teams. You got to get in front of people. You should be able to be out in the field with your people and have face-to-face meetings as we come out of this pandemic. It's not easy. I mean, being stuck to the desk if you're a business developer is a kiss of death. We have inside sales and we have outside sales. If in your company there's only sales, then you need to work on that, and you need to develop the difference between the two. There is a role for people to do business development inside, but going outside is as important or more important, I would argue. So if you're the person that's doing both, then you have to balance that out, because ultimately, if you don't get out, you're going to fail at being a business developer. And if you're not leading the people by doing it, you're going to fail at that. In my opinion, the best definition of leadership is to inspire others to do what you need them to do, especially when they themselves do not want to. But the key word is to inspire. You can't inspire anyone stuck behind your desk. Okay? Then what are you doing then? You're directing, you're telling them what to do. That's not leadership. That's called managing. So there's a big difference between leading and managing. So leadership is all about inspiring people to do something, right? And you can't do it behind your desk. I guarantee you that.
Thank you, Louis. And thank you, Kelly, for your point too to Michael. Really appreciate it. I hope that helps a little bit, Michael, for you. Any last minute questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, I just wanted to thank you, Louis, for your time. We greatly appreciate it and the discussion today. And then for the rest of you, as a quick reminder, Business Development Guild does have a workshop coming up on July 13th. And the focus is going to be Know Your Leadership Style, Secrets for Building Effective Relationships, which could be a really good follow-up to this conversation today. So please be sure to check out our website to register. Thank you all, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.